CraftSanity, CraftSanity. Art and craft creativity. Interviews with people who make.
Okay. Well, welcome to the CraftSanity video podcast. This is kind of experimental. We're here at the Midwest Craft Con in Ohio, and it's kind of like a reunion tour because, Tanya, I know you. We've met before. You've actually contributed to CraftSanity magazine.
It was a while ago, but yes.
Well, it was a while ago. I just very recently got back on my publishing horse, so it's great to be back in contact. And you brought along a friend, so I was able to meet your friend Carla, which is really cool. And I'm so excited to talk about this project. And I had no idea. I ran into you, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? I did not expect the story to roll out that has rolled out, because you guys are actually working on a yarn line, and it's I can't wait to hear more about it. So I know that, Carla, you're doing the dyeing, and you are doing the pattern design that's going along with this. So if we can just start by, Tanya, I'll let you start. So if you want to give people your, the lowdown on who you are and your website and what you do, and then we'll just kind of get started that way and launch into it.
Okay. I'm Tanya Thomann, and I'm a special education teacher just outside of Detroit by day. But I am the child of a home ec teacher, and I had a grandmother who was a seamstress and a grandmother who was a knitter, and both of them encouraged my craft as I went along. And so my business name is Maybea Crafted, after my grandmother Mamie and my grandmother Beatrice. So they have, sort of come with me on this journey. I do make some handmade knitting bags, but where I'm moving towards is doing more pattern design. So there's a handful of designs that are in Ravelry currently, and a handful of designs that are sitting with tech editors right now, being ready to be pushed out this spring, one at a time, that I'm pretty excited about. I think that knitting makes people feel clever, and we're often a little bit intimidated by some of the tricks that I have to do. So my patterns are pretty simple patterns that make you look clever and aren't too difficult to knit.
And I love that about your patterns, actually, because you feel really accomplished when you get done, and it looks trickier than it actually was. So there's
absolutely.
definitely a need for more patterns like that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Carla Kohoyda-Inglis, owner of CjKoho Designs. I'm in southeastern Michigan. My day job is as a transportation research person. I work in a hospital, so when I started to dye, it was a way of letting go of some of the trauma that comes along with my job, and something that brings joy into my life. So I am never happier than when I am sweating over dye pots that are steaming in the studio, and it's magic to me. Dyeing is magic. You put some things in a pot and you get wondrous things out of it, and that it is my goal to bathe the world in color, and I'm working on that.
Well, excellent. And so how did the two of you start to work together?
It's a small community, as crafters, we all sort of know each other. So we were brought together by a couple of friends who thought that we would work well together. 2 years ago?
2 or 3. It's been a couple of years.
We shared a booth, sight unseen, for a weekend.
And that's kind of risky, because you don't know how that's going to go.
There were actually 3 of us that shared a double booth, and there were some very crisp conversations that happened prior to sharing the booth, and we had a great time in the booth. It was at the Ann Arbor Fiber Expo a couple of years ago, and it's been a friendship that has just sort of blossomed from that.
Yes, it's been wonderful.
That's great. And at what point did you ladies decide to launch your own line of yarn?
Talk about Mary.
So I have gone to a music festival for a number of years and have taught at the music festival and have really developed some pretty great friendships there. And one of the women who has taken some of the fiber arts classes that I've taught there kept coming and talking about how she raises sheep, and she just wants to know what to do with her fleece. And she's a very humble woman. She really doesn't want anyone to know who she is. She's just that kind of a private person. But she said to me one time that she started keeping a flock when she was in middle school, and her sheep are really her lifesaver, that they are what make her get up in the morning. that having other living beings depending on her for their well-being. So a few years ago, I bought a couple of fleece from her. I actually think I traded a pair of socks that I had knit at the same music festival. So we traded, and I had that processed into both roving and into yarn, and it was delightful to work with. She raises a Romney BFL cross sheep, so she breeds the cross. The fiber is lovely. I am not a great spinner. Carla's a wonderful spinner. So I played with it and spun a little bit. I knit with it a little bit, and it was really wonderful stuff. So as Carla and I developed our friendship, I dragged her to the music festival with me, and she thought it was just as great as I did. Made some friendships there as well. We went to Allegan this past fall, and as we were talking about what each of our business goals were and where we were headed, one of the things that I said, have you ever thought about having your own yarn? Have you ever thought about like having that, making that happen? And she said, well, kind of. And I said, let me tell you about this friend of mine. And she was like, oh, that's great. I said, she only lives a little ways away from here. And I know she's coming to the Michigan Fiber Festival on Sunday. Do you want me to have her bring some fleece? So Mary showed up with her pickup truck full of 8 fleece. Oh, wow. And we looked at it and we smelled it, because if you're a wool person, that smell and that touch and that tangible stuff. And we looked at each other and we said, we'll take it all. So at that point, we weren't sure how the collaboration was really going to work, because Carla truly is the yarn person in the mix. But as we drove together up to Stonehenge to have the yarn processed, because both of us feel very committed to sort of local economy, women-owned businesses, really making sure that artisans and craft people are paid fair wages and that they're getting a really quality product. So we knew from the get-go that we were creating an artisan yarn, that it was not going to be a commercial yarn. It was not going to be something that was going to be an inexpensive big box competitor. We wanted to make something special. So as we dreamt about what this was going to be and worked with Deb up at Stonehenge, and talked about what we wanted the yarn to be, and drove home and then waited patiently for the boxes of yarn to come.
Not patiently.
How long did it take? And this is Stonehenge. Is it Fiber Mill? Is that the official name?
Yes.
Stonehenge Fiber Mill. And this is in what part of Michigan again?
That's in East Jordan.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
and I believe this is, Jeff, is this the one where, my husband's off camera here, where we almost, we had that really interesting ride in our motorhome, I want to say. I think
it's off a little tiny dirt road,
yes,
and it's hard to find.
We were we went up a dirt road, and we barely were able to turn around in her parking.
Yes, that would be it.
Okay.
It's very muddy, and it's sort of hilly,
but it's like absolutely, it's like this hidden gem.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Like people have no idea that are driving around the area. Like there's a fiber processing. I mean, you can. It's and you buy yarn there, and
right. And Deb has done a great thing for the community of East Jordan as well. She's really brought business there, as her yarn, shepherd's wool, has really taken off.
Right.
So she's done really great things for the economy in her area. And as folks who've grown up in Michigan and lived in Michigan, that's important to us. We know that it's not important to the world necessarily, but it's important to us as far as helping that. So trying to stay local with that, it's a few hour drive from us, but local-ish.
Oh yeah, well,
within Michigan.
It's wonderful too to see the processing happening again, because this used to be the way it was done.
Right.
I mean, in communities and cities across the country, people were able to get things processed and made locally, and now we've outsourced so much of production that it's almost like this thing is dying away.
Right.
So to see artisans like yourself deciding, like, we're going to do this, we're going to have a yarn line, and then take it to a Michigan location, someplace within driving distance where you can physically take it there and then get it back.
Right.
Well, and talking to Deb, I think, was really important, because we didn't know what we were doing. We had these great, beautiful fleeces, and we sort of said, here, what can you do with these?
Right.
And she talked us through the whole thing.
Right, and as a knitter, I've noticed that people are moving more towards finer yarns, but they're often afraid to use a very fine yarn for a project just because of the hours invested in knitting that.
Right.
And yet, the chunkier, bulkier, worsted weight projects don't always show off the fine stitching. So we wanted to find something in the middle. So we had a sport weight yarn. We decided we wanted a 3-ply yarn, because we know that that's a rounder yarn. We know that it's going to show stitch definition a little bit better. It's going to wear a little bit better. So we talked with Deb about that. We talked with her about the fleece. Carla has dealt with raw fleece in the past and processed that, but that's not something that I've ever wanted to be a part of. It's a lot of work, and I respect the folks who do that, but that's not where I'm at.
Right.
So we talked with Deb about that as well. Are these fleece worth purchasing? Are they a good quality fleece? And she looked at them and smiled and said, "Oh yes, they're very good." And pulled it apart and really examined that and sort of confirmed what we believed as we had purchased those fleece from our friend. So the yarn came back just recently. I mean, really just
It's right after Christmas, I think.
right. So we've been playing with it and trying to decide, how are we going to handle this? Carla's already mentioned that her idea is color, and she wants to bathe the world in color, and I love color work knitting.
Right.
So it was a really good marriage as far as figuring out how to put those patterns together and how to make things work, and yet we did want to show off the beauty of the natural colors as well. So I spent a weekend in Carla's studio doing sort of grunt work for her. She was the mastermind behind things, and we talked about color, and no, I want it to be a little bit more this way and a little bit more that way. And so she tweaked the colors and humored me as though I had a big say in it, but really it was Carla who was able to look at the palette that we had and make good sense of that. And then I said, I want to bring them home and work on some samples and put together some patterns that would really show off those yarns nicely.
And you taunted me with photographs of the
That's true.
samples. She would take half a picture of it and say, "This is so pretty, I can't wait for you to see it."
Oh, so you didn't even show her the whole thing?
No.
You waited till it was in person?
Yeah.
And how far apart are you guys at your drive to get to each other?
An hour and 15.
Yeah, a
Okay.
little over an hour.
Okay.
So far enough that we don't get to see each other often and that we have to make a decision.
Right, you have to, it's not just a random
Right.
popping by. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so she was able to kind of keep you in suspense a little bit.
Yes.
And then,
So some of the reveal was just yesterday.
oh really?
So she saw some of the natural things that I had put together, and we had a group of friends got together in January, and we put a skein of yarn in front of them and attached some needles to it and said, just knit, tell us about it. We had a little comment sheet out that, pros, cons, and we kept saying, no, write things in the bad column for us so that we know, so we can make this better.
Right.
And they kept saying, it's perfect, it's great,
Wow,
we
that's
love
really
it.
great.
And we said, no, we need to be better, so because this is our sort of test run. It's just
Right.
8 fleece, so there's a very limited quantity, and we want to be careful with that.
And just for people who don't know, when you say 8 fleece, some people have no idea how much yarn that is. So how many skeins are we talking?
I think we ended up with 167 skeins.
Okay.
So it's a lot of yarn for.
So that's a pretty nice stash.
Right. Right. We piled it up on the table in Carla's studio last weekend, and we thought we had a ton of yarn. And we went to bed that night, woke up that morning, and it was my last morning at her house working in her studio. And we made all of these plans for the things that we were going to do with it. And then we said, holy crow, that is not enough yarn. We need the whole clip next year. So
And the whole clip will get you how many
about
skeins?
25. About 25 fleece.
fleeces.
Okay.
So about 3 times as much as what we have.
Okay, so that'll be a pretty serious amount. of
Yes.
yarn.
Yeah.
Is it hard though when you're dyeing the yarn, you're knitting with the yarn? Is it hard to, because you're going to have to at some point you're going to part with this yarn, even though people are going to pay you money for it. Is it so precious to you now though that the thought of getting rid of some of it is too much? I mean,
No.
no. Okay.
And I'll tell you, it's sort of a qualified no.
Yeah.
I will say that I love these.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing craft shows. I've been dyeing for almost a decade now. And when people say to me, which one is your favorite?
Mm-hmm.
I say, that's like asking me to pick between my children.
Mm-hmm.
I love them all because they are all special in a certain way.
Right.
This, to me, is so special because it came from this collaboration between Mary and Tanya and myself and Deb, that I want everyone to have a skein of it.
Mm-hmm.
I want everyone to touch it. I think there is magic in this yarn. And
And the more we work with it, the more magical we think that it is. And I'll kind of take you through some of that when I show you some of the sample knitting that
Sure.
we've done. But we continue to be amazed at
Yes.
how it's changing as we work on it.
Yeah.
But, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, that's exactly, see,
Well,
now
that-
we're finishing each other's
Yeah.
sentences.
I think that's the mark of a good friendship. I'm curious too. I don't think we mentioned the name of the yarn line. Did we mention
No.
that? That's pretty important because I'm interested in knowing the story behind the name. So what can you tell us?
It's a
about
long
that?
story. It is called Welcome Home.
Which is very cozy.
So
You know.
We think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
So part of that is that we want folks to experience the good in Michigan. We're making national news for not such great reasons these days, and yet both of us love our state. Both of us love Michigan, and there's a lot of beauty in it, and there's a lot of great things going on that don't get national attention. And so part of it is welcome to our home, welcome to that. And then the other part of it that is sort of the secret for those of us who've been to the Michigan Women's Music Festival is that was the greeting when you showed up, is that it was a community that was sort of a pop-up community. And when you walked onto the property, that's what folks said. And it really was a welcoming space. And so we want to create that environment that we are welcoming folks to the yarn, to craft, to color, to our state. We want you to feel like this is your yarn, that you are our people, that you get what we're about, that you care about artists, you care about artisans, that you care about shopping with local small businesses. We want to welcome you into that process. And we know that that's not for everybody, and that there are lots of folks that are going to be really happy shopping with yarn from big box stores, and we say that's a wonderful thing. And some of the patterns that we release will be exclusive for a bit, and then you can use that big box yarn for that. But we want you to feel really special knitting with this. We want you to
and this
feel...
could be an opportunity for people to instead of soaking up tons of yarn and tons of patterns, to kind of be a little more deliberate and say this is a special project, and maybe
Absolutely.
select one of your projects, your kits with the yarn and the pattern, and just have it be a little like the special hat or a special something as a gift or something that's symbolic of all these things you're talking about. And it could be good for people who hoard yarn too.
Right.
They might not be able to afford to buy as much of it.
Right.
Which brings us to that also the economic question too. What kind of price point are you guys going to be in with your yarn? Have you settled that yet, or do you know how much a skein is?
we have the undyed skeins, when we sell them as a whole skein, are $26.
Okay.
The dyed skeins are $29.
Okay.
So it is, it's a range. These are the naturals.
There's
both
also
of those are natural.
Yes, both of these are natural colors. There is a
Wow.
silvery gray color. I don't have a full skein of
And that's
that.
natural too. So
Yeah.
those three are just natural.
These are the
Oh,
three
my
This
goodness.
is how the sheep grew it.
Wow, how
So-
beautiful! Like I just assumed. I'm like, oh, well, those two are dyed, and
Yeah.
this one. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So you automatically have three colors.
Yes.
Right. Right.
I love that.
And there were fewer of the brown and the silver. So really, we worked with the natural cream color to do the dyeing, and that was even interesting too. So when I've sent wool to be processed in the past, I've sent one fleece,
That's so nice.
and it comes back. But when it was processed at Stonehenge, even though we put all of the cream colored fleeces together in one batch, they can only process so much at a time. So there were dye lots within the cream color. So we decided as we were dyeing the colors, if it's a darker color, maybe we're going to use this more yellowy, darker fleece to dye those darker colors. And
Right.
if it's a lighter color, maybe we'll use that to dye a brighter, lighter tone, so that we would have that. And Carla's got an amazing setup in her studio. She ran a GoFundMe campaign last spring. So she has a giant studio space with great color inspiration in there, lots of natural light, lots of space to work, and just about every color dye you can imagine to mix up into the custom colorways that she creates. So it was really fun to see that process. As someone who doesn't dye yarn, that's been a fun learning experience for me, and I have learned that I will never dye yarn. It is too much work. I will leave that to the professionals. But that was a really fun part of it too, to see how these natural colors kind of played out. And we did some experimenting, thinking to the future, that if we have more of the darker colors, what will those look like in the dye pot? So we have some things kind of percolating for next year as well.
Cool. And how many colors are you going to have available?
I
in this
didn't
first
count.
batch?
I think it turned out to be 8. I think it turned out to be 8. There were a couple of colors that we had hoped were a little bit different, so we had to do some tweaking because we loved the color that we came up with.
Okay.
And then, but it wasn't what we had planned, and so we had to do some adjustment for that. So we do have pretty close to a rainbow of colors. We have this coral color and a red. There is an orange that is being, didn't quite make it.
It was on
here.
the drying racks.
But this lovely spicy color and a yellow. We've got a bright green. These are all things that I've been knitting samples from, so you can see that they're not necessarily full skeins.
It's fine. It
shows
shows that they're in use.
A couple different kinds of blue and a purple. So
all right. So you guys did go for the rainbow effect.
we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. So as we look at these, and we mentioned the price point, we know that for a 250-yard skein of sport weight yarn, that $26 and $29 is a pricey bit of yarn, especially when you start looking at these colors and trying to decide which color you want. So we're putting together some kits because that'll allow you to experience the colors. And we talked a little bit about the magic of the yarn and how it's changing. And as you work with the yarn, and even as they've gone through the dyeing process, they've changed. So if you compare, say, this blue yarn to the
This is really, really soft.
the natural yarn that you were.
Soft.
And I think that's surprising to people because there are still people out there who think wool, it's so scratchy and terrible. And it's like they're not working with the right wool.
Wool is the best.
Yeah.
Okay, so the difference here.
Yeah, so you can tell the difference. The blue has been a little bit more processed, and so
It does soften it then, would you say? Every
Yes.
time it always softens?
Yes.
So thinking about that, we've thought, well, we really do need to wash the natural colors a little bit more so that they can get to the same softness as
And
the
so
others.
would you guys do that, or would you have it when it's processed, have those folks?
No, we'll do
You'll
that.
do that.
We'll
So
do
you'll
that.
treat it kind of like you're going to dye it, only you
Yes.
won't dye it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it'll give it a little bit of softness. But we, as we were thinking about the price, we thought, well, if we're looking at an expensive skein of yarn, we truly want to make sure that people can knit something about it and not break the bank, that we
Right.
want people to have an entry into this. So we started by looking at some free patterns that are available. So we went to Ravelry, we went to Knitty to try to see, well, what's going to show off the qualities of the yarn? And that's where we started.
Okay.
And where it started to become magical to us. So this is a free cowl on Knitty. It's called Eleanor, and it's a one skein project. It starts out with a little bit larger needle size and moves to a smaller needle towards the top, so it's got a little bit of a
Right, so
flare
it's a
to
little
it. But you can see the stitch definition in this is just exquisite.
Yes.
So,
And you wouldn't, people would not imagine that knitting with brown,
mhm.
because that's another thing. People are like, brown? Oh my goodness, brown. But no, brown, and the thing is, brown is a really, you can wear brown with pretty much anything.
Yes.
So if you have a really bright red cowl, you can wear that, but you might have something that clashes with it, where this is going to be
It goes with
something, if someone's trying to
everything.
get value for their investment in the yarn,
Right.
going with a neutral color is
Absolutely.
a nice thing to do. And you're right, the stitch definition is really gorgeous. And this was a free pattern.
That was a
So
free pattern.
You just
So-
tried it out to
Yep.
see what could people do with what's available if they just buy the yarn and then go their own way.
Yes.
So I thought, well, it shows a lace pattern quite nicely.
Yes, it
What will
certainly
it do
does.
with something that's cabley and a little bit more textured? So this was a little bit larger needle size. This is also a free pattern. It's called Reed. It's available on Ravelry. It's a reversible hat. So
And that
there's
looks pretty
texture.
unisex too. I mean, would you say, is
Absolutely.
that, yeah,
Yes.
that's another
Absolutely.
thing too that's nice.
And you can feel, where the lace had a little bit more stiffness to it, that has a bit of a squish to it.
Mm-hmm.
And
this
that,
one.
that texture in the pattern, it was a cabling stitch that was a little tricky to sort of maneuver the stitches back and forth for it, but not impossible. But that gives that a little bit more bounce and a little bit more texture to it. And I mentioned that I love color work. So
yes, we can tell.
and-
Your sweater.
So prior to us dyeing any yarn, I thought, well, let's see how this works together. And both of us were shocked at how the hand of the yarn changed. So this, again, is
Oh
a
my
free
goodness. Now,
pattern.
Is this the two color?
These are the two natural colors.
Okay.
These are the same two colors in this hat.
Wow.
It's called As the Leaves Begin to Fall. This, again, is a free pattern. I love the top of the hat, how it makes this snowflake design at the top
Oh,
of the
yeah.
hat.
It's really pretty.
And it's a little bit longer, so it's got a little bit of a slouch to it, but feel just how different that hat feels.
Oh my word! Yeah, that is different. So every time you change the stitch pattern, you're going to get a different. But it's so nice.
Right.
Oh, you guys really are onto something.
Yeah.
This is really cool.
So
Love
when we
that.
compared the three of those, we thought we need to use this yarn for color work. And then again, that's where the intersection between Carla and I fit together.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a couple more things that were in some natural colors, but we put together this hat pattern that looks super complex.
Now, is this your pattern?
This is my pattern.
That's really cool.
And I don't recall what we were going to call this. I will fill you in on that in a minute.
That's okay.
It currently unnamed pattern, but it starts with a corrugated rib that is just, often it's a new technique for people, but it's not a tricky technique to learn. And then while the pattern does look a little bit complex, there are several rows in here that are just a single row of color that add a little bit of break to the pattern. So there's a green row and a purple row right next to one another. And two-handed fair isle knitting is something that I think should be in every knitter's wheelhouse. And there are not long repeats in here. So even on the inside, you can see how there's not a lot of long floats.
No, so you don't have to worry
would-
about things getting, you get your
Catching.
barrette or something stuck on a, yeah, that's really great.
So-
and again, it's a short pattern, so it's just a hat you're not going to be in over your head.
She started this with slightly damp yarn because we dyed on Friday. We dyed the purple and the green
Wait,
on
are you talking about
Friday.
like last Friday?
Yes.
Yes.
Like Friday, Friday?
Not
like
Friday yesterday.
No,
Friday
like a
last
week ago.
Friday. Yeah.
Oh,
So she
and
came
so
over.
since then-
She picked
Oh
me up
my
from
word.
work.
Wait, all
and-
the stuff
and,
since the color?
Yes.
Oh
we
my
dyed
word.
these
That one?
slightly damp Saturday.
I love it, though.
She finished on Sunday
Wow.
before she left.
Designing a pattern.
The pattern
Oh, you had
was
already
designed. The
designed.
pattern
Okay,
was
designed.
designed.
Okay, I was going to say, my word. That's still amazing, though, because this is like, you have to think. This isn't just mindless knitting. This is pay
Well-
attention to what you're, you have to pay a little attention.
You have to pay attention
Even
to the
for
chart.
you.
Well, you have to pay attention to the chart, but
Right.
the simplicity of that pattern, what I like about the pattern is that it's a very easy to remember repeat. So it's 3 stitches of one color and 1 stitch of another. So
Right.
3 1 3 1 3 1
Right, so you can kind of
across,
just cruise across.
and then 1 3
Yeah, and
1
actually
3
I'm
1
seeing- I'm
3,
seeing that pattern here,
or
so-
1 1 1 1 1 1.
Right.
So
You just make sure you're on the right row
yeah.
and that you're doing the right, yeah.
Right. So
Excellent.
We thought that kitting that up, because to purchase 3 different colors of that's going to be a very expensive hat if you had to buy 3 full skeins.
Oh, so you guys are going
So
to sell
we're going
just the
to-
quantity you need?
We're going to kit that up so
Oh,
that you
wow,
have
that's
small
actually-
bits.
Does anyone else do that? Because I think other people are just like try to just sell you the whole skein, and that takes the
Right.
price
Right.
dramatically
and
higher.
we want people to experience the yarn. We
Yeah.
don't want you to go broke. We don't want to outprice ourselves. So we're thinking that the hat kits are, and we haven't done the final math on it with the patterns and printing and whatnot, but we're thinking that the hat kits are going to look at about $35 to $40 for a hat kit, which is still
Well, and the pattern you can use again.
Yes.
pattern you can use
You
again.
cannot use the yarn again unless you unravel and start
Right,
over.
right. Which some people
why
will
would
do.
you
That's
do?
an option.
So
Probably not recommended. End of season, yeah. So
this will be another colorway of the
Very
same
cool.
pattern. So
that's really, I like that.
looking
love
at the
this.
warm
That
colors.
one is speaking to me. Yes.
And then we'll do another kit in the natural colors. So
Yes, I
those will
really
be
like
kitted
this.
up in
So
little
lovely.
pillow boxes with the pattern tucked in here for you so that you have, everything nicely laid out.
Oh, okay, so it's going to look like,
Yes.
so this hat will be like
Right.
this. Very cool. Oh, it's so beautiful.
So, some people think that, choosing the colors is tough. We've taken the choice out of it for you.
Right.
Some people kind of balk at the price of buying 3 full skeins of yarn. We're not going to give you 3 full skeins. We'll give you enough to do the hat.
Right.
And that's an affordable piece. So we want this yarn. We want to welcome you to our product. We want that to be a piece. So
Well, it's going to help you folks as well make that yarn go a little further.
Exactly.
Because it's great to get a full skein. Because, I think all of us have done this where you go to a festival and you see this really beautiful yarn. You get one skein of it because it's kind of expensive
Yep.
and you're like,
Right.
oh, it's so beautiful. You can't leave it behind. And I have skeins that have been sitting on my shelf for a long time because I didn't buy the companion yarn.
I call that the shrine of sacred yarn.
Yes. And the thing about it is
So
it's
it
like,
sits there.
Yeah, but you have one color, so I can't do this
Right.
with that one skein, and you don't want to mix in. It's kind of nice that it's coming from the same clip and the same, because it's kind of nice. So that's really cool that you're doing this, and I haven't seen a lot of that happening. So I think this is a great thing that you're starting, and just because it takes all the things you talked about, that that get people to pause
Right.
and like just hoard yarn.
Right.
Because
We
it's
don't want
not
this
fun to hoard
hoarded.
yarn.
We
No.
want
You gotta
it.
use
We
it.
want it knit. We want people to feel how lovely it is. We want them to tell their friends. We want them to, sign up for our newsletter so we can tell you when more is coming.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to, hear about the experience. And both of us have started doing a bit of writing about that so that we can really share that with people. And if you don't see us at a yarn show or a fiber festival, we'll be able to have those in our Etsy shops.
Yes.
Both of us will have that, both at CJKoho Designs and at maybecrafted.com. We'll have those available.
And do you have a joint website for this yarn line?
We don't,
Okay.
but the yarn, the cost of that goes into our account to be able to purchase the next clip, so the
Okay.
next year's fleece. So we're hoping that it's well received. We think it is a lovely product. We're really proud of it. It will be launched at YarnCon in Chicago on April 1st. And
No joke, folks, for real.
Yeah, April 1st,
and
for
it's
real.
not a joke.
And
Not a
then
joke.
April 9th,
9th.
8th and 9th?
9th and 10th.
April 9th and 10th, it'll be brought back to Michigan with us, and we'll be at the Ann Arbor Fiber Expo. Both of us have our own booths there, so you can find it either in Carla's booth or in my booth. It does not matter to us who you purchase it from. We just want you to have it and knit with it.
Okay. And so tell us about the patterns, like, because you're going to have this hat pattern. What other things are you designing to go with the
So
yarn?
there's colorwork patterns, or what they'll all be.
Okay.
Primarily geometric prints, primarily things that are entry-level sorts of patterns. The patterns are sized from infant to adult, as well as
Oh,
including
awesome.
a cowl. So you talked about reusing the pattern. Once you've knit the hat for you, because you'll want to keep this very precious
Or give it to
project,
someone very, very special.
give it to someone that you love. You'll be able to then use that yarn that's a more affordable yarn that maybe you want to knit a hat for charity, you want to knit a hat for somebody that you love. You'll have that pattern. So our guild does a lot of knitting for others. It would be a perfect thing to do that. It's fascinating to me how changing the colors changes the look of the pattern. Even just looking at the two
Oh,
of these,
yeah.
how different they look and how different things pop out at you with the different colors.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they will primarily be color work. We've talked a little bit about next year when we have more wool to work with, doing some larger projects, adding some lace to it, because obviously the lace really shows the stitch definition
Right.
nicely.
Mhm.
Cables aren't really in my wheelhouse as far as designing with them, but it's not totally
I'm just
out of
going to
the
give it some
question.
time. I think,
Yeah.
I think you're going to go there.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
So we're excited about it. We're happy that we had a chance to talk with you about it, that you're willing to share that with others.
Well, I'm just excited. I think this is great because it's a Michigan-made. I didn't think
Yeah.
I'd go to Ohio and learn
Yeah.
about Michigan,
Yeah.
but I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled about
Right,
that.
right.
No, I think it's wonderful, and I hope that this is the start of just something really huge, because it's going to be fun for people all over the country, not just Michigan and Ohio, but
Mhm.
everywhere where people can just buy something that might be a little bit of a stretch. Maybe it's more than going to a big box store, but it's special. They'll know the story of
Mhm.
the women that are involved in making this, because there's 4 women that have
Mhm.
touched this fiber,
Mhm.
and other support people along the
Mhm.
way,
Mhm.
the other
Mhm.
people at the processing mill, and
Yes.
having it spun by machine and all that, and then the people are packing up the dyes and shipping them to you. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just really, I think when you tell the story of, this hat, people see this hat, and then someone says, "Oh, I got it from this dynamic duo who is doing this welcome home line." It's just a very
I would like to be a lecture woman. You can be Dinah Girl.
okay.
I'm okay with that.
So the next time we see you, will you be in superhero
Costume,
gear?
yes.
We'll work on it.
You have to knit something
I was
up.
going to say we're going to knit a cape.
Yeah, I think it's a good drape,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is really fantastic. Congratulations to both of you. I don't know if there's anything else that people need to know. Are you you said you have a newsletter. What is the best way to sign up for that?
So on my blog, which has been often neglected, on the right-hand side, there's a little
Tell us the
link.
address for that.
www.maybea Crafted. So MAYBEA Crafted, CRAFTED.com. We'll get you there, and on the right-hand side, there is a link that says email, newsletter sign up, or something along those lines. It's pretty apparent. I have not sent out very many. I sent out 1. So you are on the ground floor if you sign up for that. Carla, I don't know where you're at with that newsletter. She's been collecting some addresses in person. But both of us have websites, so CJKoho Designs.
Actually, it is cjkoho.com.
Okay.
Easy. And I have not...
KOHO.
Yes, cjkoho.com. I have not set up the button to sign up for the newsletter yet, but that's on one of my to-do lists.
Okay, well, when you guys do, you can update me and I can put a link.
Sure.
And it'd be
Absolutely.
nice for people to, because it's going to be in small quantity, I know it'll be great for, you can let people know, like, hey, it's going to be
It's
released,
here
it's going to be
and it's-
posted.
yeah,
Yeah,
get
and
it while
people
it's
can
hot.
Yeah, and that's something kind of cool about that, too, because it's going to be, it's precious, it's special.
Yes.
And not just because of the story, but because of, it's
limited.
It's going to be limited edition.
Artisanal yarn.
All right. Well, I like that, and so we'll direct people there, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the conference. It was really
Thanks.
great to get to
We're
chat.
excited about
Well,
it.
I'm excited. I feel like I'm breaking some news here. This is really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.